heard of too big to fail banks, but what about too big to fail bankers? When it comes to naming names and actually holding people accountable, some criticize Wall Street is still like the wild, wild west. Joining me now to share her latest column on this very topic is TheStreet Foundation's Susan Antilla. Hi, Susan. So U.S. regulators shocked the ratings industry recently when it charged a former S&P executive, Barbara Duka, for misleading investors with fraudulent information. She's now suing back. The charges could lead her to being barred, which is a big deal considering she's already working at another agency and she's doing similar work. It would seem that her life, at least professionally, is moving on. So why is it so significant for regulators to go after individuals?
Well, we have not been holding people responsible. Big firms can pay big fines, and they negotiate with the regulators. You pay more money, and we'll let your executives off. And who pays that? The shareholders pay it. So you really do need to have sort of the fear of God in these guys that they might be named and they might be barred from the industry.
So overall, you think this might be still of a boys' club mentality that's going on here? They went to the same schools, they worked at the same firms, it's the same revolving door of private and public sectors they're all entering. Finding a big bank, though, some would say benefits both parties because the regulator wins a big settlement. The banks get to protect their rising stars or their established stars. So who loses? Why is going after individuals so important for shareholders?
Well, we all lose. I mean, the shareholders obviously lose, but we all lose because it wasn't that long ago we had this big financial crisis, and who was held accountable? Not very many people. Some little people at boiler rooms, places like that, got held accountable. When it comes to the big names like Merrill Lynch, JPMorgan, you don't see anybody being charged at a high executive level.
And naming big names like JPMorgan, you mentioned, that they were one of the firms that were not charged and settled back in 2010 with the canceled Toys R Us IPO. And it was an example of banking pretty much gone wrong. They were charged with bankers saying, we'll give Toys R Us a good rating if you give us the IPO business, right? And some of the banks that were charged includes JPMorgan, others, you see the list right there. The charges are pretty absurd for any investor to hear, right?
Well, yeah, you had a bunch of securities analysts who were promising good ratings of Toys R Us in exchange for getting the business. And research analysts are supposed to do research and find out if the company is worth buying, and that wasn't happening there. And so FINRA went after those firms in a case that was settled in December, and not a single person was named. And I mean, Sue, they had examples through those complaints of supervisors breaking the rules, research analysts breaking the rules, but none of them were named. None of them got in any trouble. They're all at their desks right now doing their jobs.
It's unbelievable. So do you think Wall Street's at fault if this kind of activity continues to go on or is going on? Because we have to be fair, no one's admitted to wrongdoing here.
Well, right, because that's the way the negotiation process goes. I mean, they don't admit to wrongdoing because the regulators don't hold their feet to the fire. This is the regulators' fault. I don't blame anybody in business for doing the best negotiating they can with regulators. This is the regulators not taking on the tough cases and not going up against the banks that have the best lawyers.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing your insight with us, Susan. That was a great column. Thank you. For TheStreet, I'm Susanna Lee in New York.